Hello, this is Roland. Welcome. Today I want to make a very brief video to point out something that's obvious, but it may not be obvious unless it's pointed out. Okay, and that is there's a way of doing. There are two ways of doing everything. For example, a person can tell if somebody grabs them or touches them with love or with anger. You can tell the difference, can't you? There's a difference in the touch. When you watch somebody that's angry doing something, you watch them preparing food or whatever they're doing, there's a difference, isn't there, if they're doing it angrily? Well, anger is just one emotion. There are many others. Or, yes, emotion, I guess that's the right word. So you can see how the intent of a person has an effect on how they do something. Now, what I wanted to say today is that what has happened to you is that you have been tempted to become angry. See, little children are not naturally angry. Somebody does something to them that makes them angry. Somebody, how many times have I seen it in a grocery store? A little child reaches for a box of cereal or something. And it's totally innocent. Who wouldn't want to, as a little child, who wouldn't want to reach for a box of cereal? Well, then what happens? The mother rips it out of the child's hands. Don't do that. Put that back. See? And when she rips it out of the child's hands, see, then the child becomes frustrated and starts crying or gets angry. See? It could be handled a different way. It could be handled totally differently. And I'm not going to, it's just so obvious how it could be handled in a different way. But I'm just giving you a simple example. So in your life, you've been tempted to want things. See, little kids, when you watch little kids, for example, when there's commercials on TV for some toy or other kids have a toy or something, and pretty soon they want that toy. Why is that? Sometimes there's a fad. There have been fads. You remember a long time ago, like there was a Cabbage Patch doll, and I don't know all the different fads, or what's happening now, but you remember, and then everybody wanted one. Then there was long waiting lines to buy it. Millions of people bought a certain thing. So it's a fad. See what I mean? But can you see how it's artificially created? It takes advantage of a weakness that we have. That when something captures our attention in a certain way and puts an idea in our mind, then we want it, for example. See? So what I want you to see is that you've been tempted. You didn't start off life wanting a lot of the things that you do. Look at all the things you do, what you buy, what you eat. See? Drugs you take, or alcohol, or cigarettes, or buying things, or whatever it is that you do, certain habits, certain hobby. You didn't start off life that way, but somehow you acquired them. Now some things can be, what I'm trying to say is that there are different ways to do everything. There's a way that's natural, that just comes to you naturally. See? And then there's a way that's art you've been tempted. Well, the whole human race has been tempted from the very beginning. Okay, and you see it today. You see, we are just like Adam, in that we are tempted. Okay, but just understand this, based on a couple of simple examples that I've given you, that you've been tempted, see, by a whole bunch of stuff. But what happens is, once you've been tempted, see, I don't know how to, it's so difficult to convey this idea. There are two different ways of looking at things. See, a woman can tell if a man is looking at her with lust or with not lust. I don't know how to, what word to use. Like I said earlier, someone can tell if you grabbed them angrily or if you grabbed them with a quiet restraint. You know, the child is running for the street, and the little tiny toddler is running toward the street, and the parent swoops the little child up in the parent's arms. See, there's no anger there or anything. So that's a difference than grabbing someone angrily. See what I mean? So there are different, but see, the Bible talks about the lusts of the eye. Okay, and I don't know if it talks about the lusts of the ear. But can you tell the difference between someone who's just quietly sitting there doing something and other people are talking and it goes in the ear one out the other? Or when other people are talking some kind of gossip about someone and then the ear is listening to hear the gossip. See the difference? There's a difference between looking at a piece of pie sitting there, okay, or lusting, longing, hungrily, greedily, voraciously wanting that piece of pie. You see what I mean? But isn't that the way we become? I mean, it's a bit embarrassing. Let's be honest, it's a bit embarrassing. But we start to, I'll use the word lust. I can't think of what word to use for food. We have a natural hunger. Maybe an unnatural hunger is a better way of saying that. People can develop an unnatural hunger for sweets or for, see. So you got the idea. There's a lot I could talk about, but I just want to keep this very simple. So now, knowing that, what can you do? Well, you can just be aware of it. There's something about awareness that changes. Like, for example, have you ever been doing something? I'm just going to make something up. You're poking in your ear. I'm just making something up. You're poking in your ear, and you don't think that anybody's watching, and then all of a sudden you notice that somebody is watching you, and then you straighten up. You stop doing it, and you act more decent. See, you're being watched. See, somebody's aware of what you're doing. Okay? Well, you can be aware, start to have awareness of what you're doing. So before, if you were hungrily thinking of the pie, oh, if I could only have that pie and eat that pie, and you're hungrily thinking about it and fantasizing about it, and when you start thinking about it, it actually makes you hungry, doesn't it? See? But it's unnaturally being stimulated. You see what I mean? But then if you notice that, okay, you notice it, and then you just take a mental step back and notice that was what you were doing, and then go about your work. See how noticing it makes a difference? All right. So now, I often talk about my meditation, don't I, on these videos, and in my books, and in my radio program. Okay, I talk about it. Well, it's a way of learning to stand back a little bit. Learning to stand back and have a little mental distance. Okay? Because now what has happened is that you've been tempted by so many things that you've developed a habit of looking at everything. You've developed a habit of looking at everything having the effect. This is so difficult to word. The effect that a temptation has on, the effect that something that you want too much. Okay, let's use the example of the little kids, and then other kids have a toy, and the advertisers talk about that toy, and maybe that the child reaches for that toy in the store, and the mother rips it out of its hand, and so somehow these things then make the child want that toy, want it. Okay. Well, there's a difference between the child thinks about that toy and looks at that toy than if the child had no interest in it whatsoever. That's a nice toy, but not. See the difference? Well, in your life, because people, everything has tempted you in a similar, like that, except more subtle. But so many things that now just about everything has some kind of a history associated with it. Could be a glass. There's a glass sitting there with a little bit of water. And maybe when you were 4 years old, you reached for the glass of water and knocked it off the table, and then your mom yelled at you. And you started to cry. Well, see, so now that glass of water somehow attracts your attention. I'm just making an example up. You'll have to see for yourself. But the more aware you can become, the more you can practice my meditation, the more you can stand back a little bit, then you'll begin to see the effect that things have on you.